This morning, I want to go back to Currency Stories 101. Like, how do we build a currency story? How do we take the idea that we see either on a chart? Remember, currency stories can come from three angles. From any one of three angles. So if you think about the three angles of a currency story, and I just want to go right back to basics here, because the challenge here is that I really, other than the market transition, I absolutely, and you guys know my positions. We're going to do a position review today as well, because this euro is way beyond a distraction at this point. It's a point within the trade where I'm starting to press validity within the U.S. dollar as well. So you can't talk about the euro without talking about the euro without the U.S. dollar. And I'm on the weird side of that one as well. So let's talk about what's going on. So this is going to be part of our Forex Fishbowl discussion here. And as we go through the notes, so you can do this on your own, we're going to be simultaneously going through the euro and the U.S. dollar. Not just the euro-U.S. dollar, but the euro and the U.S. dollar. So we'll do the euro first and get into what the story is. Now remember, when we're talking about building a currency story, building an individual, and this is the key part here, building an individual currency story, because I need to know the individual currency story before I get into the pair conversation. So individual, if I could spell it, there we go, currency story. Now, there's three different avenues we look at. There's three ways that something grabs our attention, or I should say a pair or a currency, we should say a market, grabs our attention. Okay, and that's either through the news or data or some sort of headline. So of course that's fundamentals, right? Then we have on the other side of that, I think kind of in terms of the way traders look at it, I don't think it's a polar opposite, but a lot of traders view it as the polar opposite, which is the price action. So we're talking now about major and minor psychological levels, near term, or I should say previous highs and lows. That's what we call oftentimes our breadcrumbs, especially when they're near term. So I'll actually use the term breadcrumbs. And that's our near term highs and lows. So major and minor psychological levels, previous highs and lows, and I should put within the look back, right? You guys know that, within the look back. Breadcrumbs, in other words, near-term highs and lows, and really any significant, and this is the key here, horizontal level. Now, horizontal levels are more objective, right? Trend lines are very subjective. So we're talking about horizontal levels, previous highs and lows, sometimes gaps. I could put gaps in there. I could put 52-week highs and lows in here. But these are all horizontal levels, right? There's no arguing that a market made a certain low. Well, in the Forex market, there can be some argument, of course, because there is the difference in the feeds, because this is not a centralized exchange-driven market. So you will have variation, but pretty much people can agree upon, within a handful of pips, certain highs and lows in the market. Okay, now the last part of that is the technicals. And these are, of course, subjective. Now, why are they subjective? Why are technicals subjective? Why are they subjective? Because the different settings that someone could have for their moving averages, for their stochastic, for their CCI, for their MACD, those are just a few of the indicators, just a handful of the indicators, just a drop within this bucket of technical indicators that people could use, and then they could use different settings to boot. So let's say I ran into a group of 1,000 traders, right? So let's say I ran into a group of stochastics users only. I bet we'd probably find half a dozen to a dozen different settings. Some would be very short, some would be very long term. And even if I just ran into a group of traders who are into oscillators like stochastics, they'd probably be spread between stochastics and even RSI. Okay? So technicals are subjective not only because of settings, but because of the sheer volume of choices we have. And another great point about technicals, and this is a Forex only thing, subjective and the Forex Sunday. Absolutely. Absolutely. The Forex Sunday. Is it or is it not part of the charting data? Absolutely. Great point there, MJ. So the technicals. Now, how might we find an individual currency story via technicals? I've talked about the reasons why technicals kind of are the last resort, but what would be a technical? Maybe it's a chart pattern. Okay? Some of my faves are triangles. I like channels, wedges, flags. So triangles, channels, wedges, flags. Those are really usually where, those are the ones that pop out to me. I don't have to really hunt them down. They really usually just pop out pretty easily. You know, we can call double tops and bottoms, triple tops and bottoms. We can call those chart patterns as well. But those are more related maybe to our price action, more so than chart patterns. But you could throw them into chart patterns if you want. If it's a good, tight double top, low variance, that would probably end up on your radar as far as price action goes. Okay, so chart patterns. What else would catch our eye? Of course, significant, well-followed SMAs, simple moving averages. So now we're talking about the 50, or I should say the 20, the 50, the 200 daily SMAs. Right? That's going to get our attention. In a chop, it might be, again, technicals. In a chop, it might be an overbought or oversold stochastic or some sort of oscillator. Right? These are individual currency stories. Now, what's going to happen is one of these, and this is probably not a complete list, but a pretty thorough list of what initially might get our attention. Is everyone following? I don't want everyone to lose the point of this list here. These are just some of the ways we might get our story started. Okay, overbought or oversold. And by the way, in our chat room, this is often how it happens. Okay, so that's just a kind of just a technical list there. So there's three ways a currency can grab our attention, a market. So it could be the fundamental, the news data headline aspect. It could be some sort of price action or horizontal level, or it could be a technical. So I want you to keep this in mind, this idea of building the individual currency story, because this goes back to then how we're going to talk about the US dollar and the euro right now, which has got to be the most confounding part of our currency story discussion on our books, without a doubt, because everything else is either falling in line with seasonal tendencies and making sense, along with fundamentals and some price action, or we have central bank understanding. I should throw central bank, of course. And where would central bank, by the way, end up? Central bank, of course, would be fundamentals. So how could I forget that? And of course, remember, there are near-term fundamentals, and that's usually going to be like your data, a data release. And you can also consider today's headlines. And then there are longer term, and that's usually going to be, and when we talk about longer term fundamentals, that's usually going to be a central bank driven, I should say, agenda. There's nothing wrong with a central bank having an agenda. It's what they do. Central bank agenda, or jobs, or inflation, these. Okay. Equities can be part of a longer term story. Yes? Everyone with me? So we have the news. We have price. And I might as well make this their own. And then, of course, we have our technicals. If you ever need to come back to this and remember, okay, what caught my attention? What part of this caught my attention? This would be a good way to start. Or am I missing something that I should be considering as far as perhaps catching my attention? This is a good place to do it.